Daniel, we're back.
We are. Oh my
So
gosh.
technically, it's the first time ever that it's just you and me. We had the episode previously where Alex Baumgartner was a guest because our Alex was out of commission day to day. We have the same scenario today. He is playing backseat producer today. He is around, but he is not in the best of shape, but he's soldiering on to be part of the show regardless. The true professional that he is. Anyway, Daniel, how are you?
Good. Can we say that Alex is in a non-contact jersey, or he's just not dressed?
I think that's a very good way of putting it. No, I
Okay.
think non-contact, like, because he's still participating, but
Right.
it's not like to the full thing. This is actually like pure 2-on-1 podcast, like at its core that we're recording during a baseball game, and the Jays just
Yeah.
wrapped up, so that's been pretty fun.
He's our Charlie Coyle, basically, right now in training camp.
I don't get that. What
Charlie Coyle's the only one in a non-contact jersey right now
Is
for the
he?
Bruins. Yeah.
he needs to be healthy because the Bruins.
It led to something that I wanted to say,
What?
where projected lines for opening night, because he's a non-contact jersey, that means Jack Studnicka is projected to be their second line center on opening night.
I was about to ask, who do they even have down the middle beside Pat? Honestly, you know what? It's a topic for another day, but this honestly could be the last year for the Bruins, if you think about it, because of Pat. We don't know what he's going to be like next year. Anyway, though, so the layout of the show is going to be a little different today because we have so much to talk about. I doubt we're going to get through everything. So what we're going to talk about first is obviously the Leafs and Habs training camp. We're touch on the preseason game last night, even though it's preseason. Anyway, though, I think to start the show, I'd really like to know, Daniel, looking at the Leafs camp so far, and again, I guess in the same breath, talked about that preseason game last night, who's been impressing you from the Leafs side of things?
It's been Michael Bunting, and I think that that's someone that we talked about before, where he's a guy that he's going to come in, he wants to play for the city, and he's like a hustle guy, someone that you could put anywhere in the top nine. And that's what I love about him. I know it was a random hit, but Curtis Gabriel, because I know that he's probably not going to make the opening night roster, but you like to see those type of guys that coming into training camp and they try to do something. You know what I mean? They try to have a spark. And he's just one of those guys that he's a high character guy that you like to have around like contending teams.
So first of all, I'm assuming you mean the Romanov hit that he threw between the boards. Yeah, that was something. That, and he had the fight against, I think it was Brad Baddock. Yeah, there's always that sort of like, you can kind of compare it to Ryan Reeves or whatever, that like we don't really know what his role is except for he's tough. It's probably, he's almost sort of solidified that sort of first call up. He's more like an NHL role of what you think Rich Clune may be. Like, wasn't Rich Clune getting a bit too aggressive with Alex Kerfoot yesterday when he was getting a bit too comfortable with the goalie? I don't know. But yeah, like, again, Gabriel was one of the guys who really stood out just for his pure physicality, right? So, another guy I wanted to ask you about, Daniel, was Josh Hosang, because I thought, from what I could bear to watch in last night's game, I thought he was pretty good.
Yeah, I think he's finally going to get the opportunity to make an opening night roster. He's going to do something that, I don't know. I love the quote where like he'll carry the sticks if he has to.
Oh yeah, sharpen skates while playing the ECHL. Yeah.
He just wants a chance to play, and it's what we've been talking about all year, where like just let him play. And I think that it's a great situation now in Toronto. It's going to be a bit dicey to see where he kind of fits in because, man, the amount of wingers the Leafs are actually bringing in, and like we even talk about Nikita Gusev yet.
No, we haven't. There's a fair few. I have an Athletic article up here from Jonas Siegel. Great guy. Great name, too. And he has some of the, around camp, like some of the lines have been skating together. Obviously, these aren't for sure final ones, especially because Auston Matthews is not there. But like some of the combinations he had was like Richie, Marner, Brooks. That you can sort of see he's projecting Richie starting on that top line. Tavares was working with Bunting and Hosang. Pretty nice combination. A really fascinating was Kerfoot, Nylander, and Mikheyev. There just seems to be, then later on, there's Camp, Gusev, and Kasha. It seems to be that at least every sort of line coming out of camp and that has at least one guy you knows for making it for sure, and guys who are just sort of fighting for it. Another guy I was really impressed with last night, it was cool to see Nick Robertson on the penalty kill, because if he can sort of get that PK role, you know what? That's another reason to try and keep him in the lineup. You know, we'll see like what actually happens, and I think some people were talking about last night, it's probably going to be better if he goes to the AHL to start anyway, but again, the Leafs are doing that a lot, like this sort of skill, like Marner's obviously been a great penalty killer for them. They need a replacement for Hyman on there too, so yeah. And Bunting, I like Bunting, I really do. Except when he's scoring against Montreal, though.
Okay, but we love the name. I don't know. We love the name. Cool. We love this. He's a Scarborough guy.
Yeah, yeah, sure. You remember?
I like he didn't leverage the 20 goals. If you know what I mean.
He was a rookie. How many games did he play? Like 40? Ish around like 40, there.
Yeah.
I don't think he was in the position to be like, yeah, hey there, what are you doing here? Arizona, I don't know how they did not retain him. You need some guys there, but
they don't want to score. That's why.
It really feels like they don't, right? It's going to be fascinating to see how bad the Coyotes actually are this year, by the way. It really is. Another sort of story that's going on with Toronto, though, Daniel. It was kind of mentioned at the beginning of the year, or beginning of training camp, and it was Morgan Riley being asked about his contract and what he said, and I'm going to paraphrase here. Loves the city and all that, we know that, but it's a business. So I'm thinking about all the sort of contracts around defensemen, right? I'm not really convinced he'll get something around $9 million, I think, and this was mentioned on the STP, so I'm a little annoyed to have to quote it here. But the Colton Parayko contract, I think if there's going to be a Morgan Riley extension in Toronto, and I think really, like, if I'm confident he'll end up staying anyway, I think that's a much better comparison. Even like I can't see him signing for more than 7 even. I don't know about you, but
yeah, I think that he is the number one guy here, but he hasn't really kind of shown where it's like, I'm going to be that type of guy on any other team. Or I'm not saying like he's a good player, but he doesn't have the acolytes of an individual player to kind of ask, like, I want the 8.5 and above kind of thing. Like, I think worst case scenario is they don't get anything ironed out. He goes to the open market and some team that's desperate for a left-hand shot defenseman who could play top pairing minutes, give him like $9 million. But I don't see that going on. I think Kyle Dubas wants to get this done before we get to that point.
There's a fellow Canadian team that would kind of love that sort of player, and that's Montreal. Another really funny sort of option. And so Spencer Corbry is now the assistant coach who's working on the power play for Toronto. And he's switched up the power play, and I kind of love this. So what he's done is, there's no for sure net front presence, but you can believe it's probably going to be John Tavares on the top unit now. Matthews will still be on the flank for the one-timer option. Other half wall will now be Mitch Martin, it would need William Nylander is taking Marner's spot on that far half wall. Mitch Marner is moving to the bumper position. How do you think that changes up the way that Leafs power play looks, especially finally seeing Nylander on that top unit?
I think that it's something that it was a huge strength for them going into like last season, and it did work, but it did evaporate a little bit towards the end of the season. And then in the playoffs, we didn't see it at its greatest effect. So I think right now, I guess just changing it up, seeing what they can do, and really, in a way, stacking that first power play unit is something that I think that is going to work well for the Leafs, because you get that done. These guys are going to play 20, 25 seconds or so. We're going to see that they could do something with that, and if that doesn't go anywhere, then that's okay.
It's that flavor of I remember from the moment John Tavares joined, and it was going to be that this power play is going to be murderer's row. And I remember the first game of the year, I think they went 2 for 2 against the Habs. And it seems like every year it's like the pure amount of firepower. They always start off great with the power play. So it's just, you would kind of hope with these changes, like they find a bit more consistency, right? I think the big key is, and like, I think Marner's a lot more of a threat in that bumper position. The famous meme of Marner has a good shot. The big thing was Matthews was the only real danger on the power play. So the big danger, the big change Toronto are going to look for is making everyone else, a factor.
Yeah, everyone else looked good as well.
And that's the wonder when you load it up and you go like a 1-3-1 sort of layout, right? Is you see it in Washington, you can take up Ovi, but then Backstrom just sends it to Oshie in the slot, or John Carlson's got the big bomb. Although the best teams in the league run the power play like that, and hey, apparently this new guy, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, Spencer Corbury, said he's a creative mind, and you know what? On the power play, that's exactly what you want. Anyway.
This reminds me, you know what this reminds me of?
What?
And I don't like quoting this team, but it was the same way. But it's like the Chicago Blackhawks in their prime of the Kane Taves era. Their first power play unit used to be Kane, Taves, Hossa, Seabrook, and Keith.
Their 5 best players.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy, eh? If you put your 5 best players on the ice at once, you're probably going to score.
Maybe. Yeah. Teams should think about that.
Well, I mean, that's just me though. Well, the one I know. I'm not a coach, Daniel. Anything else on the Leafs and how they've been playing so far? Are you already getting ready to go get your parade route done for Toronto after that first preseason game?
Alex is nodding. Yes, thumbs up. I think so. Course, I think naturally. That we never overreact on one game or one play or anything. But I'm pretty confident that we're going to see each other on Yonge Street.
I mean, well, sure, man, sure. On the other side of things here, we'll look at Montreal. And I mean, if I talk about the other side of that preseason game, don't care about preseason, people, because it doesn't matter. And the Habs just got dummied in that game anyway. I think the only real highlight was, Caulfield had some looks, except when he missed that breakaway, but that's fine. Before we get there, though, I really want to ask you, we teased it last episode, Jonathan Drouin, he revealed that a big thing that's been plaguing him is he's been dealing with anxiety, insomnia, talked about how they had a 3-game series last season, and he missed all the games, and it's weird. He almost talked about like it was just his like intensity for the game. It's almost like he couldn't turn it off. But he realized he needed help. He realized he had a problem, and he got it sorted out. Did you see what Josh Anderson said?
Yeah, I'm happy about that. That was the one thing I was going to mention, that, it was a big story that we actually finally got to see Jonathan Drouin back on the ice, and to see Josh Anderson support him like that has been great. And that's the one thing when we talked about that intensity, I know he's always had that a bit. I remember when they were talking about him in Halifax, where they had these expectations for him. I remember when he got sent back, and then at the World Juniors, they're like, okay, he's the guy that's going to lead the team now. Or, we have McKinnon, we have Drouin, we could do something. And it was one of those players where I kind of feel like just keep waiting. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to come. Just keep waiting. And then there were those glimpses, and then he goes to Montreal, and those expectations are still there. And frankly, they've been ridiculous situations for him to exceed. Like, okay, it's a big market, and they asked him to play center. Yeah,
when he's never played it at the national level, or at the NHL level, when I'm talking about. But yeah, no, he was never in a real. I was rewatching some old Habs like opening ceremonies for the home opener, and there was one I was like, who is that? And it was his first season with the Habs, because he was on the 9-game trial, and it was Mikhail Sergachev. I'm like, oh yeah. I forgot he wore it, and like there's been this sort of like weight of that trade and how Tampa have been doing. You know how big of a Jonathan Drouin fan I am. When he finally it looked like he was really going a few seasons ago, he gets hurt in that game against Washington, and he just never sort of got it back again. Even last year he was playing well as a playmaker in that, but I just want him to have a good year. Montreal had their red versus white inter-squad scrimmage today. And at the Bell Center, naturally, fans were there. Love to say it. And apparently, every time Jonathan Drouin had touched the puck, and they quickly threw him on the jumbotron, he got a massive applause for it. So that was really, really cool. The home opener, you would hope that he gets a massive ovation when that happens, because I mean, just what a great guy. Some other stuff around Montreal land is all of a sudden they decided to say hi there.
Oh, the doggo said hi there. Yeah.
See, he's not happy because that Mike Hoffman's out for about 4 weeks before he plays the game for the Habs. And what that's kind of done is it's kind of put a bit of a question mark around what sort of Montreal's lines are looking like. So far, we know it looks like Suzuki, Caulfield, and Toffoli will be one of the lines. That being probably one of Montreal's only returning lines from last year. Anderson has been skating with Dvorak and Drouin. I think they were a line at the scrimmage today. Brendan Gallagher is dealing with some personal things. He'll be back for the third preseason game, apparently, per Dom Ducharme. Well, Daniel, what do you think of those lines? We've seen what Caulfield, Suzuki, and Toffoli can obviously do, but that combination of, it's like, okay, Dvorak needs the guys who can carry the puck. Anderson and Drouin, well, every time we see them, they're going from one side of the ice to the other, and you can't stop them when they have the puck. The transition demon is what Arpon Basu called Jonathan Drouin.
Yeah, that's what I really like about that line is it's balanced, that they're going to have these guys that can skate. They're going to have these guys that can play a two-way game, that they're going to go back and forth on the ice. And it really kind of goes with what they're going to be able to do, because we've talked about it's not at that point yet. I think Cole Caulfield is still going to become that elite scorer kind of guy. Nick Suzuki is going to take that extra step. But what we saw with Montreal last year, and even if like that third line is still a questionable thing, is that balance that you're going to have those two lines that can score. Those two lines you could really rely on, and then a very reliable third line that's a pseudo 2B kind of line that Montreal could really throw out there, even if like you say like they don't have that elite type of guy pending Cole Caulfield.
It's weird because right now, like, you can just sort of, who's left on that third line winger wise? Gallagher and Hoffman? What? What's interesting though is I don't think Jake Evans' spot is, well, I think, let's be honest, he's probably going to make the team. But the way he's been skating at camp and the group that he's been placed in, he's been put there with Paquette, Paling. So Dom Ducharme's been challenging him. The Rottweiler is just not happy.
He doesn't like the challenge.
No, he doesn't, even though it's healthy competition. Another guy I really, really wanted to mention, I've been mentioning Raphael Harvey-Pinard, obviously, a ton. He was very, very good at the scrimmage game today. Joshua Waugh, who I don't think I've even never mentioned before. I think he was a pick in this year's draft, has been really, really good. So I just wanted to highlight him. Last thing we're going to talk about on the Habs front, though. Sami Niku has been signed by the team. It's a one-year deal. It's two-way. $750K is the NHL thing, as well as the cap hit. Left-handed guy, has some offensive side to his game. He can skate, but he hasn't quite reached that potential that a lot of people saw him probably have, Daniel. Has some great hair, though.
I knew you were going to say that. I was about to mention that. Yeah. Where the moment he has a man bun, I know you're going to fall in love with him. Yeah. And the way I kind of see it is like there's no risk to this at all. He's the kind of guy where it didn't work out in Winnipeg. I think he was kind of a dark horse pick I had for them when they were trying to balance out that depth on their defense. But I know that he kind of got squeezed out with the moves Winnipeg's doing with the guys who are getting called up. I know that there was that top pairing they had with the Moose, and not with the Moose, but they had that in the AHL with who was it? Oh, Dylan Samberg and Sami Niku. And that one worked out pretty well. But I know that in terms of what the depth is looking at right now, it's going to be interesting to see what Sami Niku is. I know he was a 7th round pick. He was a guy that he was a bit of a surprise of getting to the NHL as quickly as he did, given where he was selected, but very under the radar, like low risk, high reward choice for the Canadians, especially on that left side D.
You know what's really annoying, Daniel, is when the chat stops telling you that a message has been sent. And Alex has been sending me stats here. And apparently he's just said that they've sent Waugh back, so they've sent him down, which is very annoying because he was very good today. How dare they? Or am I thinking of... Oh, yeah, there it is. Joshua Waugh, Xavier Simoneau, and Joe... I can't say that last name. That's actually very disappointing. Waugh was really, really good. Wow, I don't get that. They're being patient. You thought he would have gotten some more games, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's really early, like when they usually make these kind of decisions. I thought we'd have like the mass send downs. You know, they always have like for example, like Habs sent down, and then there's like 15 names.
You know what's really annoying, Daniel, is I was looking at the roster in last night's game, and some of the guys I saw on the roster, I'm like, that's who we're starting here? I just thought, you looked at Toronto, I looked at some of the names they had, like Hosang, guy who's going to make the team. Mikheyev has something to prove. Bunting, they want to see what he's doing. And I looked at what Montreal were doing, and I'm like, why is, again, Harvey-Pinard not playing in this game? Why is Matisse Norlinder not playing in this game? A lot of the guys you'd kind of expect Montreal to sort of push. Paquette was there. Wasn't great, I thought. Paling was there. A little quiet, had some decent moments in that, but I don't know. I was a bit kind of confused about that. But Joshua Waugh.
There's one thing I actually was confused about.
What?
And I know that Alex is not talking right now because I just couldn't find verification for it. But like, I didn't know why Ronan Namirov is not in the training camp.
That's a very good question.
Because he wasn't listed as one of the names. Alex is looking it up.
Maybe it's a KHL thing. Who knows?
Because he signed his entry level, right?
Oh yeah, he did. He was supposed to. Was he playing AHL games last year?
He went to the game 7. I just remember that when he signed, and then he showed himself at the Scotiabank Arena.
Okay, the Scotiabank Arena.
The Scotiabank. Oh, he's loaned his KHL team. Thank you, Alex.
Interesting. Very interesting. I hate how long the preseason is. 6 games is too much. We've got like what feels like 2 more weeks of this too, of just until the season starts. We
can't simulate them.
No. Even when I'm playing Be a Pro, I never play the preseason. I'm above that. Speaking of which, Jonathan Drouin grew to a 90 in my Be a Pro. Like, he was my line mate. Wow. He walked. He's in Detroit now, so that's pretty frustrating.
That always happens. Like anytime I try a new team.
Yeah.
He caps out at like an 88 or something, and he never resigns in Montreal.
It's so frustrating. Anyway, also weird. Weber got traded, and Subban came back. I don't know if it was the same trade, but it was a thing. But we won the cup, and it was very weird to like see PK. But he got a cup of Montreal. He promised he always would. So yeah. Well, Daniel, I will say this though. We've talked about the teams we care about the most, but I think now it's a proper time to talk about the biggest story in the league this week, and that is, as expected, Friedman just sort of casually dropped this on 31 Thoughts, or 32 Thoughts, the podcast, and on his blog like it was nothing. Jack Eichel has failed his physical and is no longer captain of the Buffalo Sabres.
That's tough. That's really tough.
It's weird that he was, obviously he's gone, but them actually stripping him and Kevin Adams saying, the captain is the heart of the team. May sound a little crazy here. I like to think I treat my heart with the respect it deserves, and I make sure my heart is healthy. I saw this really funny Larry Brooks tweet. It's not funny, but it's kind of sad. Saying vaccinations, player's body, player's choice. Surgery, a player's body, team's choice. We're still in a circle, but nothing is getting saved. But for some reason, the Sabres felt the need, I'm kind of disappointed they've done this, to really be like, you know what, right before camp, like, we need some good news. We've just signed Rasmus Dahlin. Eichel stripped at the sea. It's just, it's not like I disagree with the move, but I'm just shocked at it. And just kind of disappointed with the way the Sabres have handled us.
Yeah, it's like they admit that they want to move forward and they want to try to rebuild something a lot better than they tried to before. But it's just another thing where it's like it's holding them back. It's it's like the biggest thing that they can't get over it for some reason. And I don't know, it just kind of makes me think, like, what were like the backroom conversations like on this? Like, it kind of sucks. Like, oh, you failed your physical. Okay, you're also like, not only did you fail your physical, you're not going to be here on opening night, but you're not the captain either.
No, this is a tweet from Nick Kyprios, by the way. Quote, Eichel has made it clear that he's willing to go anywhere to facilitate a trade. One of half dozen teams involved tell me a trade is doable as long as the Sabres are willing to add condition clauses around how he performs after surgery, i.e. games played and scoring. We've seen a condition or two. I think the most complicated one was between the Lucic and James Neal trade. It was like Neal had to have like something like 11 games more. It was super complicated. But how do you question that? Like, he comes back in this timetable and that sounds like a very complicated trade to make.
Yeah, especially the way their contracts are, because with Neal and Lucic, there was a great amount of term, but Jack Eichel's even more. And it's also about the caliber of the player. Like, what are you going to say? Like, he scores like 20, 30 goals, or certain amount, and we get an extra pick or something.
And does he have to play a minimum of this year, depending on if he gets the recovery time and like compared to next year? And it's just without it adds another layer of like, okay, it looks like people are trying to make this trade happen, but it just adds sort of more twists and turns to trying to actually pull the trigger on it.
Listen, like I know that they want to maximize the value they want for Jack Eichel.
Mm-hmm. As you should.
At this point though, if you get more than Anders Bjork in a second round pick, I'm fine with it. You know what I'm talking about? Like in terms of the quality they've had on this team and what they get back, like I think anything is going to be better than that.
So they want 4 assets is sort of the sound of it. And you would say, okay, maybe like if you're the Sabres, you kind of hope a high level roster player and a prospect 2 firsts, like for example. Like if you get half of it, like if you get a first and an A-level prospect for Jack Eichel with all this, with how the situation is right now, I think that's a win because he has no value right now. Yeah. If he's healthy, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, but the Sabres are trying to they're trying to deal damaged goods. And it's like, yeah, I trust me, I understand how good Jack Eichel is. We all do. And, obviously, I'd love the Habs to get him, for example. But you cannot justify trading the likes of Cole Caulfield in a deal. And no team, I know we laugh at the Rangers, but are you going to give up a good prospect when you don't know what Jack Eichel's health is? Like, and how do we know if he gets traded to another team? Are they going to agree with the surgery he wants? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so complicated.
I think it's eventually not going to be the 4-piece thing. I think that's what they want, but I could kind of see it being like, I don't know, like a 1 or 2 solid roster players, not like a top line guy, and then maybe like an A- or a B+ prospect.
Tage Thompson, Vladimir Sabatka, something like that.
Like I'm thinking of the Phil Kessel to Pittsburgh trade. Like, you know what I mean? Like I know that there was a bit of that immediacy to get it done, but I could see a package like that going the other way in terms of, especially with the amount of term that is left.
Just for comparison's sake, Alex, can you just send a link to just what exactly the Kessel to Pittsburgh trade is? Because just off the top of my head, but it was a first, Kapanen with a part of it. Now obviously like that first gets flipped for Spalling, really?
Yeah, at Scott Harrington. And like a conditional second that eventually went back to Pittsburgh because of like some weird thing with Dan Winnick.
Oh, I was going to say that, or probably goes back to Pittsburgh in one of the many trades that the Leafs and them have made. Maybe went back in the Kapanen trade. Who knows? Just a very fascinating trade. It's really funny, by the way, that all these years later, of all these blockbuster trades, that Matt Duchene has probably fetched most for the team that's traded him. That's what I don't get.
I think that's a cautionary tale too. Like no team is gonna try to do something like that to get someone like I don't know. Like I don't know if that's a comparable because Matt Duchene did play relatively okay. It's just he just didn't want to resign.
Yeah. Hold on, because for some reason I try and click on that and it's not opening. So I'm just gonna quickly Google it because Zoom seems to hate the way that we try and operate here. So Phil Kessel, pretty good player. Remember him? Not as good as Jack Eichel, but I mean, dang, he was a pretty good player, wasn't he? Wasn't he? So, and no, I don't want the one that. No, don't send me. Okay, anyway, whatever.
I'll do the. I'll go to cap friendly.
Nothing is working. No, I did it, and it gave me the one from Boston. Okay, never mind. He sent me the cap friendly one.
Okay, there it is.
Okay, sweet. So Phil Kessel. I love how every trade with Phil seems to be kind of complicated. So Toronto acquire Scott Harrington, Nick Spalling, Kasperi Kapanen, a pick they later traded to become Frederick Anderson, and the third, and then Pittsburgh get Kessel, Eriksson, Biggs, and a conditional second and some other spare changes, some picks, and some conditional stuff in there.
You're not going to say the names?
Casper Bjornfist?
Oh, okay. There it is. Oh, I thought you said Tyler Biggs, right? Okay, I just want to make sure Tyler Biggs was said on this episode.
Do you want to go ahead and do the Leafs legend bit?
No, I don't know. He kind of... That one actually really does still hurt me because I remember when... Like, we all love Brian Burke on this show, but I remember when they're like, you gave away John Gibson and Ricard Raquel. And then he's like, even if I could redo it, I'm always going to get the bigger guy.
Fair enough, man. I wonder probably too if that was his quote deal, like he called to make the deal, because I don't want to say another story of reading his book, but read his book. He talks about like the thing of and obviously like he wanted to make that trade. He wanted Phil because he felt Toronto needed a star player, which okay, cool.
He wasn't content with Alexei Ponikarovsky and Matt Stajan leading the next wave.
Sure. So, by the way, going back to that Larry Brooks trade of it seems to be what's really weird is so there are some players that I'm calling this the COVID camp segment. We know about some players who are not fully vaccinated. Maybe some of them are just not vaccinated, period. One of which is Tyler Bertuzzi. What's sort of significant about that is Steve Yzerman said, well, it's his choice. What's kind of fascinating, if you want to use that word, I'm going to, is it feels like players are getting vaccinated, A, for the money, and B, this is such a hockey thing, for the team, to not let the team down instead of being vaccinated. I just thought that was something. So here's who we know so far. There is a Devils player who is a significant name. Apparently, it will change their roster. I don't think it's been confirmed, so I'm not going to be like, oh, it's this player. Zach Ronaldo, who the Blue Jackets had made clear, okay, you're not showing. So, no, it is the Blue Jackets, right? Who said, okay, you're not showing up. I mentioned Tyler Bertuzzi. Bold Wild out of the Islanders, who you haven't heard of, and neither have I. Quoted
US
about
World Junior legend.
threw something on his Instagram about human rights. I'm sure Lamorello is going to love that. Travis Hamonic, which is a really strange one considering he opted out of the bubble, which is just weird. And Josh Archibald. If you're a longtime listener of the show, I bet Alex really wishes he was not sick right now so he could just go off about this right now. And Mark Spector has an amazing article on Sportsnet about calling out Archibald for how selfish he is. Now, what's kind of really a big problem that you see with Archibald is if you kind of look at the Oilers, this is a quote from Elliot Friedman. From Ken Holland, unfortunately, Alex Stalock is unlikely to play due to COVID heart-related conditions. Very tough to hear. And apparently they had to sort of push Duncan Keith to get vaccinated. It's just a little disappointing, I guess I'm going to use that term here, Daniel, to see Archibald sort of not going for it. And I think he's one of those people, like he had a tweet saying that COVID's actually a big... It's not even that he's like a denier of the vaccine. He almost seems like the kind of guy that's like, no, this is a conspiracy. While one of his teammates are out.
Yeah, for me, that's super selfish. That's something that, I remember NHL teams like, we're not going to really call out these guys, but I think you really do have to know like who these certain players are, where they're really putting a lot of what's been like the last two seasons that we've seen, and even going into this current season, is that the amount of work, the amount of money, the amount of effort that's been put towards keeping these players safe, towards ensuring that the games continue, are what further proof do you need as a hockey player, as a professional hockey player, to say that it's my right and I don't want to do this, even though I'm going to put others at risk, even though I'm going to put myself at risk, I'm going to put my family at risk. And, you're playing in Edmonton, you're playing in Alberta, you're not exactly in the best province right now dealing with COVID.
But they're going full capacity.
Yeah, like that's also like, if there's anyone listening here right now from Alberta, we're really wishing you the best right now. I know that it has been crazy right now, especially with the ICU and like the lack of nurses right now.
Some of the stuff, like, it was a quote, I feel like the exact verbiage of it was a bit sort of contorted, but that their ICUs actually have room for people. There's room because people are dying. There were people that, and I'm paraphrasing the way it was said, but there were people that sort of like made it sound like someone was being very insensitive talking about it. And I want to say that I don't remember exactly who, but some health board going to Alberta and saying, can you not go full capacity? Like, you look at Quebec, what's really funny is their numbers weren't going crazy when the Habs had like massive crowds outside the Bell Center, but recently they've been going up and they're not going full capacity. Vancouver aren't, Toronto, I think it's max at 10K. Vancouver aren't going to be full.
Can I give one example?
Questions.
The Blue Jays play in an open dome,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And they're still only at 50%.
Yep. It's something, man. I mean, if that's their decision to make, I wouldn't make it, but we'll see.
I know there was one joke. Well, it's not a joke, but like it's just one thing where a lot of people were talking about. No, adults were talking about like, yeah, we don't want to disclose who the players are that do not want to get vaccinated. And like the next day, Steve Eisman's like, yeah, it's Tyler Bertuzzi.
Eisenberg just doesn't care. He's just kind of like, yeah, it's this guy. Hey, why did they trade Alex Nedeljkovic right now? You're gonna have to ask them that. Eisenberg does not care. Remember when he like openly ripped the lottery?
Yeah.
And everyone was like, yeah. And then there was like a brief month where the NHL were like, why don't we just give them a 50% chance? And everyone else was like, no. Please do not do that. The Detroit. They're gonna have some fun players this year, right? Moritz Seider. Interesting players. Some other sort of stuff around the Oilers I wanted to quickly mention here is Duncan Keith is apparently not fully vaccinated. Again, he will be by the start of the season. Also, when there's William Nylander, but Nylander is much different. Apparently, it was an allergy thing, but he will be fully vaccinated as well. And also a little note that, pertaining back to the goalie situation, on 31 Thoughts, thought number 20, if you're interested, Elliot Friedman did say that he doesn't think Edmonton are done in net. I don't think they've been done in net for a couple of years now. But,
I was waiting for that one.
Their fans hold hope. I want to see the Oilers, like Sportsnet they've kept throwing up these like odds of the Canadian teams who are like thinking to win the Stanley Cup. Edmonton has the second best odds, and I'm thinking, listen, I've probably been the most positive one on the show about them, but like, where is the respect for the Jets?
I know, right? Like,
they have defense now, even if Sandberg's hurt, like Brandon Dillon and that. Did you see what Mark Scheifele said about Brendan Dillon?
What did he say? He's
like, oh, you always have to know he's on the ice. I just kind of thought to myself, yeah, Jake Evans is going to have to look out for you, isn't he?
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. It's Mark Scheifele.
But yeah, like that's what I felt like the Jets, like they're actually a team that's been contending. Like they've passed, the first round quite a few times. And to get that kind of disrespect in a way, like they were a team where, remember, we were so worried when that defense basically left in free agency. And then Dustin Byfuglien's like, I'm not about it anymore.
Dustin Byfuglien just left to go fish.
Yeah. And they quickly rebuilt it. Like, I don't think it's of the same quality, but it's still very solid that they could throw out there to help with their forwards. So, and Connor Hellebuck, like, Edmonton doesn't have that.
Decent. Oh, no. They wish. McDavid might have a cup if he had a good goalie. Honestly, just like goes out there. Because if you look at the Canadian teams, it's like, okay, we don't know what the heck the Habs are. They don't have any mobility in their defense except for Petrie. The Leafs, we don't know what's going on with the left side of their forward group. The Oilers have questionable defense. The big RFAs in Vancouver aren't even signed yet, and there's question about their defense. The Sens aren't bad, but they aren't quite good yet. And who knows what Calgary are. Like, I'm the most confident right now with, like, it's the Jets and then the Leafs are second. But I don't know. I've been kind of unusually high on the Jets the past couple of years. But, I mean, not to mention now Dubois is going to have a full training camp and all that under them. So that'll be nice. By the way, going back to those RFAs, the dominoes have started to fall, Daniel.
Yeah.
Your guy, Kirill Kaprizov, has signed a $45 million contract. It's a 5-year term. The AAV is $9 million. And when speaking to the media, this is a tweet from Michael Russo. I'm going to paraphrase here. They asked Kaprizov, were you going to go to Russia? And he said, no, not at all. Never going to happen. And apparently the GM was like, don't say that. You're going to lose the leverage in your next negotiations.
I like it. I think that they really reached that middle ground because I remember back in March when Bulgarian was talking about it a lot of times. He actually spoke to Michael Russo on, I forgot the name of the podcast, but...
Did I call him Justin Russo again?
No, you said Michael Russo.
Okay, good.
Justin Russo, aka Jake Allen.
Yep.
Yes. But yeah, it was that kind of seeing what they were going to do. Like, I know they wanted the max for Kaprizov. They wanted to go and get as many years as they want because that argument was he is their biggest star since Marian Gaborik. So once you get something like that, you have to hammer it down and get that franchise player because for as much as we love Ryan Suter and Zach Parise, they don't think they had like that that star level kind of play, like maybe Suter to a certain extent because he had 2 Norris nominations, but like Parise never hit that as a goal scorer. And to get that for a traditionally defensive minded team is pretty big, especially a player that's going into his prime.
Yep. I mean, their first line center in Eriksson Ek, it's more a defensive guy, if anything. So Kaprizov, put them together. One makes the room, one finishes. I know a lot of people have been very critical about he's only played this many games. Just deal with it. I mean, like they had to pay it, I think. And I'm not going crazy about the number either. As in, like, I'm not going to be really mad about it. I just think it's a fair deal. Like, especially because they got to give up, like, I'm not saying this, it's 5 years away, but it just feels like he's going to leave at the end of it. And still, like, here's the thing at the end of the day. You can't overpay your stars. And he's theirs. That's all that matters. He is a Minnesota Wild now for 5 more years. And Wild fans deserve some happiness. So, yeah. By the way, in our off-season stuff, not our off-season, in our standings predictions, we can put them above Chicago now, by the way, because Kaprizov's back. Yes, absolutely.
But again, too, like with the window of it as well, like I know that Kevin Fiala is still the biggest question mark afterwards. Okay, one thing is Victor Rask's money gets off the books next season, so that's pretty solid. But at the same time, like you're gonna have a full season of, and what I've seen from training camps, what I've seen from the rookie camps, is you're gonna see full seasons of a Matt Boldy, of a Marco Rossi.
That's big. Yeah.
So I think that they have that cost control right now to try to get something done, to try to build a contender within those 5 years.
I will say, maybe I'll lower the expectations for Rossi, just because like he lost a year, and it wasn't just like he's coughing like that. Didn't he? Was it like a heart? It was was it a heart condition? Oh, it was. But like again, that's still a good player. Like Boldy's another big one. You think about it, you're thinking about Caulfield, Zegras, and that Turcotte. Add Boldy there. The American rookies this year. The Calder race should be so exciting. And then here's Byfield too. Moritz Seider. It's going to be a really, really fun time. Those young players. A lot of fun. And we're talking about some guys around the Calder race for the past couple of years. Maybe some winners as well. Patterson and the RFAs. It really feels like now, and I'll read you quickly a few thoughts from 32 Thoughts, Elliot Friedman, the content king for this podcast. Just a bit of updates in regards to some of the RFAs we have left, aka Tkachuk and the pair of the of Quentin Hughes and Elias Pettersson, who apparently are all skating together in Michigan.
Just hanging out.
I love that so much. Doopity doopity doo 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 doo. Things can change at any time, but I'm not hearing that in any of these cases pertains to Tkachuk, Hughes, and Pettersson, obviously. Actually, I heard it in one, but it was denied very forcefully, and he references Matthew Tkachuk saying that Ottawa and his brother were very far away. Brady loves it there. Apparently, Jack Hughes defended criticism of Quinn's play and all that, be sure, but was also very clear to say that he loves the city. So what are we looking at? This is what I can piece together. In Ottawa, they've talked long-term with Tkachuk, and we'll see if short-term is necessary to get it done. I'm not sure they're far apart in actual dollars, but it's the structure, with the Sens not being a team that gives out much in bonuses. I'm also wondering if another skirmish is over no trade or no move protection. At the end of a long-term deal. In Vancouver, both team and Hughes/Pettersson have been grinding hard at almost a daily basis. Sounds like there's a bit of a stalemate in both cases, and Pettersson joining his teammate in Michigan. It's believed the Canucks are currently thinking about short-term in both cases. Goes on to mention that maybe Kaprizov is now this great comparable for Pettersson. Then listening to some stuff like from Rick Dhaliwal and all that, it seems to be the feeling right now is Pettersson, if this is done soon, will be the first one to go, and eventually Hughes thereafter. But if we're going short term, Daniel, what kind of contract do you think Pettersson gets? Because I think Hughes is much more difficult to look at this moment.
I actually don't know anymore, because I know that before, players used to be pretty friendly when it came to the bridge deals.
Oh, yes.
And Rasmus Dahlin just got $6 million.
Yeah, that's not
per season. And you're going to ask Quinn Hughes to take less than that? Like, I don't see that happening unless like there's another plan to this where it's like, all right, sign for 2 or 3 years for this X amount. And we'll give you that full 7 years or something afterwards. But we're in a bit of a bind right now. Can you help us with this?
It's interesting that. Want to know your thoughts on this? 5-year deals for both are already kind of set in stone, aka the 5-year or 6-year sort of term-ish for Hughes is hi there, Cale Makar, or any of the big RFA deals. Apparently, I think this was also said on 32 Thoughts, is Vancouver saying, how about the Zach Werenski bridge? But obviously the defenseman market has just boomed.
Yeah.
Especially with Werenski's next contract, obviously. And then obviously we've just mentioned in the shorter term is Deline. And for Pettersson, again, Kaprizov is the 5-year comparable. I think it's a higher spectrum of Aho, obviously, because that deal is stupid good. Thanks, Burge. And then you look at the shorter term, and I would say that there is scope there with Barzell. Probably more than Braden Point's around like 6.5, but you can imagine if it's a shorter term deal, it needs to be around $7 million for Pettersson. So, okay, there's 7 here, and let's say that Hughes wants at least 7. That cuts them real close, as in, like, I don't think if they could move the cap around, they don't have space for any call-ups in that.
No,
and that's
not
if
at
they
all.
can get it done in those terms. Which then, when you look at like when eventually Bo Horvat would be up in that, the next 3 years for their cap, maybe even extending to 4 years, it's not looking pretty.
No, not at all. And I'm looking at their cap friendly right now, and I'm looking at like who. No one is really kind of coming off the books anytime soon.
Remember when they had 4 guys coming off and they said, hi, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, you want that money?
I mean, like, okay, the recapture penalty is going to be gone for Roberto Luongo.
How long is left on that exactly, Dan?
Just this season at $3.035 million.
Okay.
Braden Holtby is only $500,000, but he goes up to $1.9 million next season.
I love how that was an instant mistake. What about Virtanen?
Virtanen is so $50,000 this year and $500,000 next year.
See, that may not be a lot in the grand scheme of things, but with how crunched they are right now, that can make a lot of difference.
This is pretty funny. Well, it is great for us, and Alex is going to love this as well. Luke Schenn has actually term. He ate $850,000 for 2 seasons.
That's such a weird deal. That's not Tucker Pullman bad, but it's like you need to give Schenn 2 years. It's a like, 1 year. Is it a one-way deal?
I believe so. Yeah.
That's so dumb.
I mean, okay, so they're gonna get some relief next year, like Tyler Mott and Brandon Sutter, but that's it. Like nothing else.
When is Brock Besser up, Daniel?
Brock Besser is up after this season.
And that's where the money's going. Oh no, they're so boned. The Vancouver Canucks, ladies and gentlemen. Again, and we'll quickly touch on Brady Tkachuk here too. Ottawa. Just give him the trade protection. Just give it to him. Like, no more of this. Like, pay someone. Like, I tried defending them against Alex the other episode. But if you have the contracts and you're fighting over like bonuses and trade, shut up. This isn't the expansion. Give him the money. Give him what he wants. Enough is enough.
I think so too, because what we've mentioned with the Sens is like, what are they trying to do? What are they trying to be in terms of all these young guys? And now what we finally see is that they really did hit on their picks. They really did hit on the guys they wanted to get. And it's like, now you're at the point that pay these guys. If you want to win, you have to pay your guys. And I don't know what they're going to be waiting for, because like if they try to think that they're going to go into this season again not wanting to pay anybody or giving the short-term deal, it just gives that another effect. Like, what are you really trying to build here? Mm-hmm. And I think, this is my speculation, this is nothing confirmed, but it's just, remember when they're like, okay, if Mark Stone signs an extension, he's going to be the captain right away.
Yeah.
And then he didn't want to stay at all.
That was, you assume that Vegas deal is exactly what was working probably in Ottawa, except maybe some protection and signing bonuses. And eventually, that C as you're talking about. Again, we talked about Darlene, 3 years, $6 million. I was actually looking at some of his numbers, and I feel like we disrespected him a bit last thing. Yes, he was on pace to hit around 40 points, and that's like Petrie like off-year Riley territory. So I think that's actually kind of fair. It still, though, the fact that it's still 6 and his defensive game is a bit of a question kind of is a bit concerning. But at the same time, they could afford, they're not paying anyone else right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Who else do they have on that team that they're still paying? Like,
Okposo,
Skinner, and like, yeah, I mean, like, it's just whatever. It's like, it's going to be 3 years. He's going to have time to prove himself. And I know defensemen take a lot longer, but it's just going to be interesting to see, like, what type of player he becomes.
Yeah.
And whether or not he actually wants to sign an extension there after he saw what they did with Jack Eichel.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, they still have 17 million in room right now, so it's not, and they have a lot of guys coming up the net. I'm pretty sure beyond 3 years, the only one who has term longer than is Jeff Skinner, which is not great. Quick passing note: Robert Thomas gets a 2-year deal, $2.8 million per. I think that's just a fair deal. He was off year, but if he gets some ice time,
2 first names.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the few people with 2 first names you can trust. Okay. How long have we been going for here, Daniel? I think we went through pretty quickly. Yeah, we started late, so we're not even an hour yet. So we can touch on some of the stuff for the passing notes. There is a lot there, so we're definitely not going to get through all of it today. AKA, first off, Alex Clark, set to be the first lineswoman in the history of the WHL. That is super cool. Let's get some more of that at the pro level, please, because maybe they'll actually call the game the right way. Unlike NHL officials today.
I don't know if Alex was coughing or reacting to that.
Probably a bit of both.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, I'd like to give her a clap.
Both. Yeah, he said both.
Okay.
Speaking of officiating, by the way, it looks like we're going to get a cross-checking crackdown this year. Alex is celebrating off camera. I saw some of it was like the net front stuff when like a guy at the point has the puck and there's just a guy lower down, probably, I don't know, maybe he'll go in for a rebound or something. And the defenseman just cross-checks him onto the floor. Guy doesn't have the puck or anything. And I just thought, I miss you, Shea Weber, because that's all he ever did. Like, I'm thinking like, man, half the stay-at-home defensemen at this league are boned because that's all they do. It's gonna be a shame, man. Be a real shame.
I wonder what Ryan Lindgren's going to be doing now in this game.
Is that all he does too?
Yeah. I guess like he's one example. Like he's that solid defenseman guy that I think the Rangers really value because they have so many offensive-minded defensemen that they have to put Ryan Lindgren somewhere to balance it out.
If they name Trouba captain, I'll be gobsmacked, by the way.
I think it's going to be Adam Fox. I mean, that'd be a cool pick.
He deserves it. Anyone but Kreider, please. Doesn't deserve it. I don't see other captains.
A Gabriel Landeskog. Pull a Gabriel Landeskog.
What do you mean? Oh, like, and just give it to like
Alexis Lafreniere.
Yeah, sure, why not? 2nd-year guy. That's insane. I was only going to say Capo Caco. I'm like, he needs to do something before he gets a Cal.
Who's the oldest guy? Oh, give it to Ryan Reeves.
Could you imagine, like, he beats up Tom Wilson that first game and they announce he's the C?
Barclay Goodrow. I don't know. One of those guys.
I mean, you want gritty and toughness. I wouldn't be surprised if Reeves has an A. Like, I wouldn't be at all.
Because they named Ryan Callahan captain. I remember that.
Yeah. Yep.
Gritty guy.
They've had some weird captains. Some very strange ones. McDonough was good. Yeah. It's really weird to think back to when McDonough was a Ranger, by the way. It feels like forever ago. Anyway.
Disrespected him.
Yep. By the way, weird hiring. The Blues. They've made some front office changes. The most significant one we're going to mention right now. They have a new vice president of hockey ops. It's Peter Chiarelli. He's back. Now. Let's all. We won't get our hopes up too much because Doug Armstrong has signed a new 5-year extension, so he'll be GM for the foreseeable future. So Chiarelli won't be running the Blues, guys. Even though you could probably hope maybe he'd get Griffin Reinhart for Vladimir Tarasenko. I don't know, but he's back in the hockey world, Daniel.
I know that this was going to happen. There were so many rumblings of him going for the open positions that I think it was a matter of time where he was going to find something wherever it was in management on any team in the NHL. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of interesting where what he would influence. Like, are you going to let him play, like keep up with player development, with like seeing how they could help things with the immediate future, or kind of like let him.
Guys, we need Zach Kassian. Like, come on.
Or work at the draft table again. Like, I don't know what he's gonna do or what he's gonna influence the most.
They're a weird organization, the Blues. It's just funny that since he won the Stanley Cup, Doug Armstrong has done nothing to help the St. Louis Blues. Absolutely nothing.
No.
But that's their territory, man. That's their territory. Okay, where else are we gonna go here in this magical? Okay, so this is something. So this is thought number 31 and 32 thoughts. So there are two very important and noteworthy free agent executives this year. We know Marc Bergevin is up. So is Julien Brisebois. Now, now, hear me out, Daniel, as I take out my hair tie. Hear me out. So, Yzerman, obviously, great player, one of the best of all time, most dynamic, a guy who at one point had like 150 points one year, eventually won a Selke. Started as an executive in Detroit. Eventually goes, old-style hockey man Ken Holland, eventually goes back after building a championship contending team. Eventually win cups when he goes. Right? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Goes back to that team he was first an executive with. Julien Brisebois. Obviously, one of the best executives when he was a member of the Montreal Canadiens, building that Hamilton Bulldogs team that won the AHL title. Old hockey guy Bergevin builds the team. They made it to a finals. Brisebois has won his cups. I think what he wants to do now is go back to the team he probably grew up rooting for and fine-tune Bergevin's roster that is losing one of the best defensemen of this modern age injury. A goalie who was 34, like, right off hip surgery. I think if you call up Brisebois, you tamper, you give him whatever he wants, all the money, ownership stake, and he comes to Montreal. I'm going to ignore the part where Jeff Vinnick, owner of the Lightning, said we're going to get it done, and I want to pitch the idea. Because why not?
I'm going to use the Morgan Riley quote where, it's a business. Yeah. So I don't think that there's going to be a 1 ounce of if Tampa gives him less than what he deserves or less than what he wants. And I think that's a good idea. Like, I could see it happening. I could see him coming to Montreal and
thank you
kind of
false hope.
Oh, of course. No, I don't think it's a false hope. Like, I think it is a similar kind of thing where there are the parts there are the young guys that you can really work around. There is that franchise staple kind of guy. Like, I think of a Steven Stamkos and then I think of a Carey Price. So maybe there's something there that they could come here, get the young guys going, and just really get anything that they can. Because I think one thing what I like about the Habs, and this is the one similarity, and it's not the stars, it's the quality guys they've had in Laval and the opportunities they've had. And we've seen with Julien Brisebois where he'll bring up these guys and suddenly they just fit. They just know their role on the team and they compete.
Mm-hmm. Julien, come here, buddy. I know you want to. You know you want to. So come on. Come get number 25 with Montreal. We all want it to happen.
He knows the player development that we need for Gianni Fairbrother.
Yeah, of course. Who has been playing on the rookie tournament? Mm-hmm. It's not the rookie tournament. That's already happened. Was on a pairing with Brett Kulak, our favorite two defensemen. You love to see it. You know what you don't love to see?
Against each other, though.
Sorry?
Would they be competing for each other, though? Like, against each other?
I would... Listen, I don't think Kulak has a set spot because the team seemed to hate him for some reason, but I feel like he's more secure than... Like, there's a few guys, and I mean a lot of guys ahead of Gianni Fairbrother. No offense, but he's a few years... How the heck he is making it longer than Joshua Waugh is beyond me. I'll tell you that. Okay. Something that is kind of sad to talk about, though. Jim Houston has retired from Sportsnet and commentating. Great save, Luongo. Just a solid commentator. Like, I know people get upset when he gets names wrong. You ever watched a broadcast before? I like Formula One. Does David Croft get it right all the time? No. Did Bob Cole get it right? No.
We get it wrong sometimes.
Yeah, we get it wrong. I'm just saying, like, I feel like there was a pocket of fans that weren't very kind to Jim Houston in his last few years. And today Lewis Hamilton won his 100th Grand Prix. That's no one's done that before. That's sensational.
The Englishman.
The Britishman.
Oh, the British man. Sorry.
God save our gracious Lewis. Anyway, so my biggest problem with F1 Twitter, right, is that I am worried that this new generation, right, is not appreciating the greatness they have with Lewis Hamilton, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I worry about is that there is a generation of hockey fans that have sort of missed their Bob Cole. Now, I mean, Bob Cole only retired a couple of years ago, but like he's known for I think it was Philly versus the Red Army. They're going home. Yeah, they're going home. You know what I mean? Remember when the Red Army was a thing? Remember the Soviet Union?
Oh yes, I remember.
I just hope that Jim Houston gets the respect he deserves from fan bases that aren't Vancouver.
I think so. I think a lot of what he's I guess what he represents. I know he's an old time guy based on his career as well as a player, but it's such an iconic voice, an iconic character that we had out there. That it is weird that you're not gonna hear him anymore. You're not gonna see him anymore. You know, when I was a kid, it's a pretty interesting thing. I always knew his voice and his name, but it was always weird to me because I think they do this a lot more now, where they show the live of the commentators and what they're talking about. They're actually on camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, I'm there's no way his voice and his face match up like that. It's just, I don't know, if it was always weird to me because it is really smooth and it is great for hockey. I don't know. I'm not gonna bash on the guy. I like him.
He had a voice for radio. He really did. He was good. I'll miss him. Yeah, it was always cool. Started the hype video for every broadcast, and it's at the end. It's the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Stanley Cup champ. He was just really freaking good at his job. People like Chris Cuthbert. Do you remember the call, Game 5, Montreal-Toronto, how he butchered it? He's like, it's in! The Habs win Game 5. I've never gotten over that, and I never will. Okay, Daniel.
Speaking of which, by the way.
Sorry?
He's retired now, right?
Yes.
Meaning he could come onto the show.
Are we going to try and get Jim Houston? I would love that.
I mean, why not? Why not? He's a dark horse kind of guy where he can even phone it in. We don't have to see him on the screen here, and it's still going to sound amazing.
Alex just edits in the voice of Jim Houston and it's him smiling. I would do that. So, Daniel, do you have the doc open right now?
I do.
Okay, so you see the rest of the passing notes we have to talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you pick what we finish off with.
Okay. Ooh, I want to. I don't know. They're
many topics.
Okay, I'll finish off with the Coyote stuff because it is slightly positive than everything else on this. Fair enough. Because it's all pretty negative.
Yeah. The rest of it is just injuries, the Blackhawks, and don't worry, everything that is not we haven't talked about here that is on the passing notes, we will talk about next episode. AKA the goalie extensions. Probably we'll have a quick thing next episode about Malkin and Backstrom and how everyone out of training camp is hurt. And in next episode, we will also talk on some of the stuff involving the Brad Eldredge stuff that's just come out, and Evander Kane is still in trouble. But we will finish off, yes. First off, Alex Galchenyuk. It's not Montreal. It's not Toronto. It's not even Anaheim. He goes and signs a PTO with the Coyotes again. Sorry, you know what I mean. He goes back to the Arizona organization, but this time on a PTO.
Which is weird to me because I know that there was those years in Montreal where the decline was pretty evident. But I think this is a team that represented where he went from a guy where let's bet on him as a solid. I think that's the point where he got traded for Max Domi, where he went from let's try to bank on that third overall potential to okay, we already know what we saw here. Let's see what we can do. I think that was where it was because I think in a sense he was a bit of that throw in to the Pittsburgh trade.
Yeah. And then remember when he was a Wild?
Yeah.
It does. I think people have sort of thrown around the idea maybe he overplayed his hand. Yeah. I really hope he didn't do that because you're Alex Galchenyuk, man. If the Leafs hadn't had given him that chance, by the way, sorry for my lighting, it's awful now. It's getting dark. It's you just think like if the Leafs hadn't sort of rebuilt him, he's probably in the KHL right now.
Yeah.
That's a shame. What's not a shame though is that the Kachina, they've rebranded the Coyotes. They've done something that I think more teams need to do, and they brought back a logo that is universally loved with the Kachina.
Yeah. Not as high as the Mighty Ducks though, according to our poll.
AKA like the original Ducks one, right? Like the
Yes, I
the
put
one
Mighty
with the
Ducks.
mask, yeah.
Yeah, I reiterate. I put the details. I put Kachina Coyotes and Mighty Ducks. So the people know.
Because people hate the current Ducks logo. I did not know it was the foot of a duck for a long time. Did you know? Well, you probably did, but
yeah,
it was just
here and there. I mean, like the orange works sometimes.
we'll agree to disagree. Who was the guy? There was someone at trade deadline once upon a time. He was having a nap or something, and he woke up and his girlfriend was watching Trade Center, and she told him, "You've just gotten traded to the Golden D Club." This is basically what their logo is. I forgot who it was, but I remember it was a thing on Sportsnet a couple of years ago. Okay.
Was it Denton Heinen?
I don't think it was Jen. I think it was where's Tynan from even before I start making assumptions?
Denton Heinen? Is he American?
Is he? Well,
Yeah.
anyway, it was a North American from what I remember. I was about to say I thought Dan Heinen was Swedish or something. I have no idea
He
why.
might be.
But,
Oh, he's Canadian.
oh, that's awkward.
Sorry, just because he played for the Bruins, I would just assume he's. If you're not Patrice Bergeron or Brad Marchand, I just assume you're American.
Yeah, you played at Boston. Boston
Yeah.
College, probably. Okay, so next episode, we will maybe not all of it, depending on how busy it gets. But I don't know how much time we're going to spend dissecting preseason games. Well, I would try my best to make sure we don't, because forget the preseason. Maybe we'll talk about Cal Peterson's extension, Elvis Merzlikins, the Blackhawks stuff again, people being hurt and all that, and what's ever new with the world of Montreal and Toronto. So, Daniel, if you want to quickly go on Twitter, and then we can just see if we're going to miss anything here before the end of the show. Hey, guys, something about the New York Giants. Eli Manning, you'll love to see it. Beside that,
Let's see.
I think we're good. Okay, then. With that, guys.
Yeah, I think that's about it. There's a lot of baseball stuff. A lot of stuff from Donald.
Good guy, Donald.
Yeah, Donald.
Okay, yeah, that's it. I see people trying to figure out who the Blackwood... who the player in New Jersey who probably isn't vaccinated is, and everyone's speculating who it is. It's probably Mackenzie Blackwood. Whoops. Okay.
Maybe.
Well, someone brought up his Instagram followers, and he follows Donald Trump. So everyone's like, interesting. Okay. That's it from us. Thank you for listening. Thanks to Alex for soldiering on and being our behind-the-scenes producer for the day. Hope you feel better. Well, we're going to talk to you in like 20 seconds anyway, but check out Alex's blog, Daniel's stuff for CGRU and the such, my YouTube channel. Sammy Niku video up now. Check out the show on TikTok. Alex is a really good one about the Leafs being back in the Atlantic Division. Really good stuff. Jagmeet Singh must be proud if he sees it. Beside that, check out the show on Facebook, YouTube for a visual experience of the show, Instagram, our own personal social medias, especially the polls that Daniel put up. They're great. Tell him much how you love them. Okay. Before we go, I wonder, Donald's just sent something to a group chat saying yikes, and I wonder if this is hockey related because he sent it to our group chat. A disgusting gesture. Oh no. Okay,
the
well,
UHL, yes.
I have not seen this. Oh no. Oh, okay. Well, we will talk about this next episode because that is not great. Okay. That explains a lot. Okay, and that's it. Thank you for watching. We love you. And have a good evening. Bonsoir.